my living room. This is Two Poets, the show where we read poetry, talk poetry, and all things creative. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, Ben, where are we?
Where are we
This
right
is
now?
weird.
This is magical. I feel like I'm in Mr. Rogers' house.
Yeah, we're coming straight to you from my living room.
Do you take your shoes off every time you come in here?
Like the yeah.
And
I
put a
had to change
cardigan
my
on.
sweater.
I am currently barefoot, so it's my
Nice.
house, my rules. Just
Should I take my
kidding.
shoes off?
You're fine.
My
Yes.
shoes are laceless, so I couldn't sit down and tie them like he would.
Oh, what's that? Who's that other voice we hear? Oh, hey, what's up, Lauren? This is my wife, Lauren.
Hello.
Hello.
We'll get into the formalities in a minute, but yeah, she is joining us as our special guest today. You'll get to hear more from her here a little later on. But if you've never watched our show, thank you so much for tuning in, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever else you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us. We write poetry each week, we read it, and we talk about creative things.
That's what we do.
Yeah, so if you like conversations, you've come to the right place.
This is it. This is your commuting conversational podcast.
Oh yeah, exactly. You got them long trips, about an
Totally.
hour. Just join our
Want
conversation.
to kill some time at work on your lunch break? Two poets.
Want to take a long poop on company time? Listen to our episode.
Two poets.
Two poets.
Two
I'm a
poets.
two poet that.
Two poets.
Two poets number 2.
I was gonna make a joke like that, but I'm a guest.
You are a guest, so you can get away. You're not going to be here next week.
Yeah, you can get away with all the jokes.
You could say something and bounce, and we'd be like, "What was that, Corey?"
Yeah, we can not have you back, But us,
this
we're
is
kind of
my
stuck here.
house.
This is your one shot.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You actually live here too.
Yeah. I'll try to
Tone
stay
it
in my.
down.
I'll try to stay in my lane.
Stay in
Stay
your
in your
lane.
lane, Lauren. Who do you think you are?
Welcome to our show, Stay in Your Lane.
The title today: Know Your Place.
Oh gosh,
I'm leaving.
you can totally hit him. He hasn't watched Barbie yet.
Actually, I did.
Oh, did you really?
Last night.
Oh.
Start calling you Ken then, I guess.
I am Knuff, guys. I am Knuff.
Well, no spoilers. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We drove to Stillwater last night just to see it.
Nice.
awesome.
I
It was
do want to
fun.
see it.
Yeah, we actually really, really want to watch it. We just haven't watched it yet.
Dude, it's a lot of
We're
fun.
waiting for the whole, Barbieheimer thing to slow down so we can go.
We were going to buy pink shirts and go all out, and we didn't. But yeah, it's probably a good thing we didn't because we drove to Stillwater. And that was interesting in and of itself, being in Stillwater watching the Barbie movie. But yeah, it's good times. So anyway,
Well, we know what your week was
enough
like.
about our social
So
status
what
as
else
a
you
couple.
What else you been up to this week, Ben?
Just driving back and forth to work. That was fun.
Yeah.
So
Still enjoying the job?
yeah, it's been really good. I'm making coffee, and I had this coffee the other day. I would tell you the name of it, but they don't carry it now because I had the
Oh.
last of it.
How dare you?
But it was an Ethiopia natural coffee, and I pulled it on espresso, and it tasted literally like cherry Kool-Aid.
Nice.
It was so good,
Nice.
and now it's gone.
Now it's gone forever. And
So
you
there's
just,
that image,
So yeah,
and
that's
you
gonna
can
be
never
stuck in my
experience
dreams
it
now.
because now it's gone.
Rude.
You're welcome. But yeah, that's all I do, man. Make
All I do
coffee
is
and
work?
drive,
All
pretty
right.
much.
Well, I would ask you what your week was like, Lauren, but we had the same week. So
Well, you're the other host, so you should probably share your tidbit.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
should, because you guys just got back from New
yeah,
Mexico.
we went on a road trip, went to visit my family in New Mexico, and it was amazing. Because once again, I got to go and just not do anything. We just
sounds
got to
awesome.
eat so much food. It was so good. And yeah, I just hung out with the family, ate food, and spent 3.5 days, 4 days, came back,
Yeah.
and now we're back.
It's pretty sick. That
Yeah.
sounds great. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of ready to live somewhere else so that we have an excuse to come back and then not do anything.
Yeah.
And hang out with people and then go back, because we can't really do that now because everybody has lives and stuff. And I'm commuting, so it's like it's the time that we have is like our time, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to be there, and then we can kind of do the same thing. Just come back here, hang out with people for 2 or 3 days, and then go back. So
That's the way to do it.
Sounds
good.
good.
Yeah, that's pretty much just what we've been up to. Yeah, just went on a little mini vacation, came back, and we're ready to get back into this thing, man. So
yeah.
yeah. So here we are. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to add to about your week?
I made Corey listen to this podcast on the
Oh,
way to
yeah.
New Mexico because I hadn't listened to the last episode.
Okay.
So I made him listen to it.
Yeah, so the
because I
way
hadn't
there,
yet.
I was like,
So-
I've only listened to this episode like 30 times while editing it. So yeah, sure, I'll listen to it one more time.
Oh, this podcast.
Yes,
Yes.
our
I
podcast.
thought you were talking
yeah.
about a podcast.
No,
and you're like,
this-
I made him listen to this one podcast.
No,
and I was
this
like,
podcast.
what podcast? Oh, that's cool.
You and you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Made him
I-
listen to his own podcast.
I do listen, like, because you'll put an episode out and then I'll go and watch the video. And I'm always like, it sounds so much better than I thought at the time that we recorded it, because I always feel like I say weird stuff and then I leave and I go back and listen to it. And I'm
I
like,
cut all
I
the
guess
weird
I
stuff
didn't.
out.
Oh, is that why? Okay.
I cut all
Because
your
I
weird
was like,
stuff
oh,
out.
I guess I didn't sound as weird as I thought I sounded in my head.
Actually,
that's what I'm
honestly,
concerned about
So
with
here's
myself.
a little behind the scenes tidbit of the show. I actually don't cut much out
Yeah.
of our conversations. Like every episode so far, our conversations just flow so naturally, and like there's not
really
any
do.
weird breaks that I really haven't had to cut anything out of this show, which is awesome. I just mess with the audio quality and and do a little bit of coloration on the video. But as far as editing goes, yeah, I just pretty much keep the whole conversation in there.
Yeah, I love that. Those are my favorite podcasts anyway. The conversations where they just start talking about something and it's like unscripted. So like somebody will just in the moment have a thought and they'll just throw it out there. And sometimes it's like freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
And those are the best kinds. And then sometimes it's not brilliant and then it's awkward and then they just joke about it for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah,
But those are the
exactly.
best types. So
I wouldn't know anything about that.
we don't know what that's like. Not at all. Everything we say is brilliant.
Yeah, everything's perfect. Right, Lauren?
That's fact.
Truth bomb.
Fact is fact. All right. Well, I mean, funny enough, last week's prompt was given to us by Lauren, who is
Miss
sitting here
Lauren
with us.
over here.
Yep.
Yo.
Oh, also, for those of you who are watching the video, you can't see it on screen right now, but our pug is literally sleeping right next to Lauren over here. Little bit off screen, though. He might wander up on our laps eventually. So
You might hear him cough.
hear him cough. Yeah,
He'll be
it's-
wheezing in the
He
background.
is a 14-year-old pug, so
Oh, buddy.
his coughs sound like he's dying, but he's not dying.
Rufio.
Oh yeah,
my
his name is
goodness.
Rufio. If you're wondering why the heck Ben just started saying that name,
That
our pug's name is Rufio.
That's
that
pretty
was
good, Captain Hook, huh?
that
You like
was, like-
That's my Dustin Hoffman. For
That
the day.
was spot on. I think
So-
you should quit this podcast to become a voice actor.
Bruh. Let's make that happen because I'm all about it. Yeah.
If you are a talent agent seeking new talent, call up Ben Burley.
Also, Corey, you're pretty good at it too.
Yeah,
I am a voice
actually
actor.
done voice acting. Like got paid for it. Jeez.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, I just got the first 10 episodes of the audio drama that I did.
Ooh, okay.
Still can't share them to the public
Yeah.
yet, but I just got them, so we're gonna have a little bit of a listen party. You and Hogan got to come over and have a little listening
Yes.
party.
We would love that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Heck yeah.
Yeah, so we were going to release the episodes actually like a couple days ago to the public. And for those who did Kickstarter, got them early and everything. But apparently, and I can say this because the director posted all this, but she was approached by someone who might get an under distribution deal. And so it'll
Bruh.
go big time
Heck
on the
yeah.
audio drama. So we're seeing where that
Sick.
goes. And if it gets picked up and put on some like networks and stuff, then it's going to be released later, obviously. But if not, if it doesn't get picked up, then they'll just release them
Okay.
to the public after
That's
that.
awesome, dude. Heck
So,
yeah.
fingers crossed. Could be
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
that's
Could go a little
exciting.
bigger than we thought.
Sweet. I can't wait to hear how that goes. And I'm ready to listen because I remember when you first told me about it. And I was
Yeah.
like, that sounds so much
It's
fun.
been a year ago since I think it's been a year since started recording
It's been a minute.
for that show. So yeah, I'm super excited to hear it too.
Sweet.
All right, shall we get to our poem?
I think we shall.
What was our prompt, Lauren?
I think it was spirituality.
Yes, it was spirituality.
yes.
All right, I need a drink real quick.
What's your best Morgan Freeman as God impression?
Morgan Freeman. Do you ever watch Frank Caliendo,
Oh yeah.
the voiceover?
No.
He did a voiceover of Morgan Freeman, and it was just like the footage of it's like a POV footage pulling into a parking lot. And it's like the voiceover, and he's like, sometimes a man just wants good food and quality conversation.
Oh my
And he pulls
gosh.
into a Hooters parking lot, and he's like, And sometimes it's about the booty. And that's like the whole thing.
Classy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about the booty.
So, speaking about that,
So
Speaking
much
about
fun.
booty, let's talk about spirituality.
Spirituality.
segue.
So I went first last time, so I think you are up,
'Kay.
good sir.
So my poem, I chose to focus on more of a love poem.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's something deeply spiritual about love and two people in love. And I think when you have a deep connection with another human, you can go to new levels of understanding together. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So
Nice.
I wrote a love poem.
Yeah.
And I would think it's kind of spiritual in a sense, but yeah. My working title for this is called Burn,
Okay.
Burn, which I changed literally 30 seconds ago. So you're welcome. All right. I see a new mystery every time I gaze into your eyes, for I am not myself now, just a creature of flesh, mortal, Jenga blocks for a skeleton, cigarette smoke for a soul. One look from you and I crumble with desire, vaporizing as I burn to ash. You, everlasting flame to this smoldering coal, keeping me alive, one spark at a time. Just one is all it takes to kindle desire, which, if allowed, consumes us both, or burns the world down around us. This is my joy in heaven, and you, my flame of life. That was my poem called
Nice.
Burn.
Burn. Short and sweet. I love it.
Very short, very sweet.
Saucy.
I just got back from the city and I was with Hogan and we were having lunch and Hogan has like these deep kind of like espresso colored eyes. And in the middle, she has like different, so this is like TMI. No, like this is just me and Hogan. But in the middle of her eyes, there are like little flecks of yellow. And then in the center is like dark brown and where her pupil is. And the dark brown center and like little flecks of yellow and then like a rim of brown around it. And it looks like she has sunflowers in her eyes. And so I will refer to her as sunflower eyes because she literally like it's there. If you ever you could do this if you want to, but if you ever just go up and stare into her eyes, you'll see like the little sunflowers.
Wow.
And every so often the light will catch it and then her eyes will have more of kind of a hazel color. And then in certain areas of light, she'll have kind of this like really thin lines of like grayish green. And so I told her the other day, I was like, I see something different every time I look in your eyes. And that's kind of like the starting for that poem because there's like the connection there, even though it doesn't matter how long you've been together, if you're connected, there's still new levels you can go to, new things you can learn, new mysteries or new levels of understanding you can reach together. And if you're connected and investing, that's like, there's something very spiritual in that. And so that was kind of my influence for that, I guess.
That's
my
very
inspiration.
cool.
So
That's very cool. What do you think, prompt giver?
I think it was a beautiful poem about a beautiful couple and about a beautiful lady.
yeah,
So
thank you.
I dig it.
Yes, if you ever see me staring deeply into your wife's eyes, I'm just trying to find the
You're
sunflowers.
just looking for the sunflowers.
Just looking
That's
for the
okay. I put her on the
sunflowers.
spot, and now she's gonna be like, "Don't look at me."
I think she would. I think she would understand, and I think we're close enough.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
probably could totally get away with it.
Yeah.
She's gonna come over to your house next time wearing big black sunglasses.
Exactly.
So no one will look in her. But yeah. All right, Corey.
Very cool. Mine is not a love poem. Mine's a little more on the nose.
Nice.
This one's called Something Bigger Than Ourselves.
Love it.
All right. Inside us all is a desire to search for meaning in a world that's seeming to take all the joy away from our very souls. It can be hard to find peace amongst the voices screaming loudly, and they push against any sense of kindness or love. But deep down, something stirs. It stirs us to hold on to a promise of another life, another home, another sense of belonging with those you love. A connection to something bigger than ourselves, bigger than our minds can fathom, new meanings. You grab them and clutch them to your chest, so you don't lose the feeling of experiencing the spiritual. Yes, we all seem to look for a higher power, or even the higher power in ourselves, or maybe no power at all, just existence. Or what of those who are losing the battle of finding meaning because of leaders beating their spirit into submission? Manipulation, frustration, putting the spirit behind nation, a generation of people losing what they once sought after. Now nothing stirs inside their bones except anger and hurt and tears that flow. I have worn those shoes. Years of deconstructing what I believed and tearing away the fraudulent weeds until I found peace. The peace that passes my understanding, and learning that what you scream on the TV has nothing to do with me, but with you. In a world where everyone has the answers and yet no answers at all, find your meaning, find your spirit, find the quiet place where only you are in it, and listen. Listen to the trees, the wind, the rhythm of the earth, and close your eyes. For just a moment, it's calling your name. And that's my poem.
Very nice. Very deep.
Whew.
Insightful.
Yes.
Yeah, I went very deep on that one.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, the focus on that one was, it's just we're all trying to find meaning in something, whether that looks like spirituality to you, or there's always something that relates that belonging, that we want to belong to something, that meaning of there's got to be more than just, or I'm just happy to exist. There's something that kind of we're all searching for. And then there's those who have found what they're searching for, and then something just beat them down to where they lost what they found, and that process of trying to find that again.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're figuring out what that even looks like now.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely different.
Yeah, it can totally change when you've gone through a beat down or a loss or a flip. Something was a certain way, and then suddenly it's not.
Not that way anymore. Yeah.
Man, it's good stuff, dude.
What do you think, prompt giver? Giver of the prompt.
The prompt giver.
It was very relatable, and I love depth and meaning, and so it really spoke to my soul. So
good.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So well done.
Why, thank you.
I love you.
Well, our guest is getting a little too close, Ben. She's
Calm down, you guys. Make me come sit between you.
Don't worry, I'm going to make out with our guest after we're done.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Let's wait till I leave. Or not, if you're into that, it's whatever.
I don't know how we just went from talking about spirituality to making out, but
Because love is spiritual. It's what I'm trying to say.
Hey, that's how we're just rounding about.
we're just full circle there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, that was a fun prompt to write. I mean, made me think a lot, and yeah, it was good.
That was going to be my question while I was listening. Is I don't know if I'm allowed to interview you guys,
absolutely.
but
Of course.
I have a question of what, you've talked about what your process is, and typically what your writing process, and how did it feel to kind of write about this specific prompt? Was there any, added thought of the process of writing through it and then finishing it and rereading it and being like, I guess, does that make sense what the question is?
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I don't know. I tried to write some stuff, and I just didn't want to I feel like you handled this really well, because especially now, religion and politics are so heavily intertwined.
It's so bad.
And if you explain one, it's almost like you have to explain the other, or vice versa. And I just did not even want to
go there.
do that. And because I would try to write something, but I didn't want to like be super vague. And at the same time, I didn't want to like write something because no matter what you say, one half of the room is going to be like, whatever about it. And so I was like, I just don't even want to go there. And so that's why it was easier for me to take a moment with my wife and spiritualize that than it was
that's a very, could be a really religious experience, you know? And so it completely made sense why you would choose that.
Yeah. And I just didn't want to try to get, I guess I just didn't want to get like super into waters that I have not really swam around in very much as far as
that
like,
makes sense.
I didn't want to dive in on a topic and then also have to, because I talked about something spiritual also, because there are a lot of things that I think spiritually that I don't associate with politically and vice versa. And so I'm like, I don't want to say something that's automatically going to give people the assumption of me being a certain way politically or whatever. And I just didn't want to go there. So I was like, I just write about something I know, and that's love and my wife. And so I took the easy way out, to answer your question.
But no, I understand that, like, the way, because I mean, when you write something, people are obviously going to read it through a specific lens, right? Everyone's got a different lens they read something through. So yeah, and when people read it, there might be assumptions of, well, he mentioned a lot of this. Is that his beliefs, or is that, you know? So I can understand that. And being wary.
And even with this poem, like if you wanted to, you could make a spiritual shift in it, and you could say it's God and not a person, you know? When I was reading through it, I thought about changing you to her, and Hogan was like, well, you could do that, but it doesn't sound as good. And if you leave it as you, it's a direct poem to someone. Yeah. And whether it's my wife or whether it's God or whether it's, you know, whatever, it could be interpreted that way, which makes it a little easier. So so it's just kind of like, I just wanted to make it like as intentionally mine as possible, instead of trying to speak on a broad subject of something that I just don't really want to get into, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. And I love it. I don't think you took the easy way out at all. I think, like I said, it was a beautiful poem about a beautiful woman. So.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
And so for you, good sir.
Yeah, no. So my process for writing this one is, with a lot of what I write, I don't really know what I'm going to write until I sit down. I try to do that on purpose. I try not to think about the prompt throughout the week. I try to not think about it until I actually sit down to write, because I want to just sit down and just kind of let it start to flow naturally, and then rearrange it as needed. Otherwise, I'll overthink it, and it probably won't be as good as how they come out, you know? So with this one, kind of just the same thing. Just went and sat down and was like, okay, I could go a million different ways. I could write 5 pages on this, you know, with just from personal experiences. And do I want to make it about me and personal, or do I want to kind of like take a more artistic interpretation of spirituality, or do I want to, you know, hit a specific point and be very blunt about something in this? And so I was like, well, you know, I was just like, I'm just going to talk about the whole center of it, of just how, you know, the spirituality is something that, whether we know it or not, it's in all of us, that we're looking for something. And there's always that something that we put our trust in, you know, whether it be, you know, God or it be nature, you know, there's always that something that we're connected to. We're looking for connection. And so that was kind of my thought process when I went into writing this. And honestly, I think I maybe erased 2 lines and swapped them, but everything I wrote kind of just left it. And there was like 2 lines. I was like, I could probably say that a little better, and just kind of swapped them around. But yeah, all I did was edit 2 lines.
I love it. I like it because there is something for everybody in that. There is a relatable aspect to that, where it's not the type of thing that people will read and be like, oh, well, I don't agree with that, or I don't agree with this part. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with your interpretation of a spiritual concept. It's a relatable place. And it's a place that we've all been, longing for meaning and looking for reason and trying to find purpose.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, dude, I think you nailed it.
Thanks. Yeah. Cause like, I mean, we all have our faith that we follow. Like I have a faith that's very personal to me. My wife's got a faith that's very personal to her. We share that same faith, you know, but everyone's got a different story, different journey.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Real talk.
Good job.
Did that answer your question?
It did.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, this is normally the part where we're like, thank you so-and-so for sending in your prompt, but you're right here. So thanks for giving us the prompt.
You are welcome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Thanks for doing it.
That was a good prompt.
Yeah.
If that's the type of prompt that we could probably both write a dozen things off of if we had the chance and the time to really dive into it.
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's a good prompt.
There's so much right off that. Yeah, so we're excited to see what the next one is tonight. But as always, if you enjoy hearing us write these prompts, send it in, you know, twopoetspodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Instagram, TwoPoetsPodcast, TikTok, TwoPoetsPodcast. Let us know what you want us to write about.
Yes.
Because there's still a lot we haven't chosen yet. So we've got a little rotation going of prompts to write about. So send those in.
We've got a good pool.
Yeah, I was afraid that we're gonna like run out and have to like start making things up, but no, people have been sending them in, so that's good.
Awesome. We're gonna have like the same two people.
Yeah, exactly. Lauren and Hogan.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We have good ideas,
That's
but there's
true.
there's other people mixed in there.
Yeah. All right. Well, so the reason we invited Lauren here today is because we couldn't find anybody. So we're like,
Rude.
We had some things we wanted to address with you.
yeah.
So
So this is
actually an intervention.
Exactly.
Okay, well, have at it.
you. We feel like you love pugs too much. So
It's become a problem.
I plead the fifth.
the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. All right. So no, seriously though, on a serious note, yeah, we invited Lauren on the show today because we wanted to talk about creativity and also mental health as it relates to creativity. And so we thought we'd bring in an expert. So why don't you, or before you say that,
mental health expert.
why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of tell us what you do and
Give us your background.
yeah, give us your professional, and then we'll ask you more of the creative questions.
Okay. Well, so as far as being an expert, I know more than most probably in this field, but I have a hard time admitting to being an expert. I am a learner. I am a student of the field of psychology, an eternal student. And so what I do is I am a mental health counselor, so LPC under supervision as of a few weeks ago. I graduated with my master's in counseling psychology in December of 2021, and I have a great job working with Youth and Family Services here in Enid, and I am the mental health counselor for Enid High here, which is just like my dream job. So I love what I do. Like I said, I love depth. When you talk about meaning, my approach to counseling is existentialism. So that is meaning. So
That's what all artists look for.
Yeah.
Is meaning.
And so, while I take art and creativity as kind of more of a hobby, it is a big part of my soul and how I, make decisions and guide my life. So
Very cool.
there you go.
And so you work primarily with high schoolers then, right?
Yes, I work with teenagers from 9th to 12th grade to senior, so freshman through senior.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, I love it. It is super cool to be working with them and to be at my old high school. So it's very familiar and nostalgic, and I don't know, it's just really meaningful.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
you'll probably hear me say that a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's needed a lot in schools, and just really, important for everyone. It's like, mental health is important, and
It is.
counselors are
Most
important.
def.
It's a big deal. It's nice that people are finally realizing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what does a bit of your creative background look like?
So I would say primarily I grew up listening to music, creating music, attending live shows. So I am a percussionist, and I initially went to school as a percussion major at Oklahoma State back in the day. And so I love all things drums, and I play a little bit of bass guitar. I play a little bit piano.
Marimba.
And well, that's part of percussion. Yeah, that's just all percussion.
I just like saying marimba.
Yeah, and I don't know. And so music is a very while psychology is my path and my career, like music will always be part of me and my spirit and my soul. And so there's that. I don't know. I like to do random paintings and just kind of, I don't know, just whatever hits me in the moment. And I mean, a lot of what's in our living room is stuff that we've created, some together and some separately. And I don't know, like interior design, it's just whatever, like creativity. Okay, I don't want to misquote, but as Liz Lemon would say on 30 Rock, the show 30 Rock, creativity to me is like a bird, like some type of bird with many, I don't even know the rest of it. So,
well, now we're going to know what that is.
I can look it up, but it's like the main focus is she just kind of rambles through trying to say something deep, and she's like some sort of bird, and it's just that's what I felt like I was doing. So anyways, that's what I got.
That's
gotcha.
Awesome. I love that. So good. So art for you, is art typically a form of expression, or is it more of a form of therapy? Like, do you do art as something to unwind as a hobby, or do you do it as something, I have something inside that needs to be expressed? Or both, maybe.
I would say, honestly, it's both. Like, I feel like the English language is very it can be confusing, and there's so many different meanings as far as like what words mean, but you can really be understood by your form of art, whatever that looks like. And so I don't know. So I feel like art transcends language in a sense, and I feel like we can just be better understood by being in the midst of creativity in any way. There's been many times where in the past I've struggled with depression, but which is one of the reasons I got into mental health, is because my walk with that and to help in that way. But when I'm in the midst of in a museum or a bookstore, which is somebody's creative path, or I'm eating a really good meal or any of that, I just feel like hope is not lost in those settings. So I don't know. So I just feel like, I don't know if that answers your question, but it is, I would say that that's like a spiritual experience, So, 100%. And that's kind of how I view it. So, yeah.
Do you approach counseling or therapy in the same way that you would approach art?
Not necessarily, because while my approach to counseling is different and unique for every single client that I have, because there's not one size that fits all. So I feel like if I find out that art is an important aspect to one of my clients, then that's definitely used.
Gotcha.
But that I have some kids that I work with that's not a part of who they are, and that's completely okay. Like, I need to kind of mold and shape the session around who that individual is, because who I am isn't necessarily going to be who this 15-year-old is. But if it is, then we can kind of mold it in that way. And then a lot of times, like I have music playing, you know, like during session, and I'll have them pick the music if they want to pick the music. And if not, then I'll just like put something else on to just have in the background. Or if we want to draw or color or make some kind of art, then we can definitely do that. But yeah, it's definitely unique to each individual. And so, yeah, I just kind of make it to what they need, what that person needs. So by finding out. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
Awesome. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's kind of what we talk about is, you know, with artists and people that are creative, a lot of the times it can be very, have its ups and downs, you know, as far as like creating. And I mean, there's some days where you just don't want to do anything at all, or just don't want to create at all, you know, and there are times where we may go through some depressive seasons because we're not outputting as much art as we want to or as we used to, or there's deadlines that are bogging us down, and we're getting so crazy that honestly a lot of times artists and creative people don't typically tend to set time aside for themselves because they're so focused on creating or working for other people that a lot of times we're not taking care of ourselves and our mental health or even our physical health. You know, it can be really hard sometimes. And so, yeah, we just kind of want to talk a little bit about that and just what that kind of looks like. Like, Ben, do you have any experience with that? Like with, you know, it's any times that may have been hard for you with creating and.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I really, the meaning thing is huge because we were just talking about this. Hogan and I were just talking about this the other day. I often feel that I need something meaningful to do. I either need a project or a thing, a goal, or something that I'm working towards that has meaning to it or that I can make meaningful. Because if I don't have anything that I feel that I'm doing that is meaningful, then I just feel like I'm just doing things in vain. Like there's no purpose to it.
Yeah.
And I need something that I am either contributing to or that I am doing with an intended goal in mind for that thing to exist. Like I want that thing, whatever it is that I'm creating, to have some kind of an impact or have some type of influence in some way. And if I don't have an outlet where I am creating something that potentially could influence someone, or where I'm working with something that doesn't have any like purpose to it, that's when I feel like I'm like, what is the point of this? Like, why am I doing this? It's a lot easier for me to step into challenging situations knowing that there's a chance for me to make something meaningful in it than it is for me to step into a situation that's like, hey, this is already laid out for you. All you have to do is show up and do what you're supposed to do, and it's good, and you're covered, and this is great. And it's like, that to me is boring. And that to me is like, why am I even here? Like anyone else could be doing this, you know, anyone else could be making this thing work or whatever. And, so for me, it's like purpose is very important, because if I feel that I don't have purpose, then I can't function or thrive in that situation. Like I need something that provides me with a sense of value, and that provides something else with like a sense of reason or purpose for why it exists. Yeah. And so if I don't have that, then I tend to either gravitate towards something, or I tend to fall into I can get pretty down in that scenario. Gotcha. So it's really important. I think it's a really important thing for an artist is to be moving. If you're not moving somewhere, if you're not progressing in some way, then you are going to feel stuck and you are going to sink. And I think an artist who is sunk is someone who is going to find it very hard to create. They're going to find it very hard to have any purpose in anything they do, and all their stuff is going to look very like dark or self-loathing, or you know, and something to that extent. So yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I know all too well what that stuck feeling is like. Yeah. And isn't that the crazy thing, like as artists and creative people and, you know, a lot of different like work areas for a lot of different people, like we want what we do to have purpose. You know, we want what we do to have an impact. Like anytime any musician makes a record, what do you think they want that record to do?
Yeah.
Make an impact, you know, either blow up on the charts and be the best thing anyone's ever heard, or like, even if just 5 people can, like, we want that art to make an impact on somebody. And I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's like, cause if that's our focus is like, I just want someone to look at this and be like, oh, I get them. I get that. That puts a lot of pressure on us because we want to do right. We want to make something that's going to impact the world. We want something that's going to, like, when we're gone, people remember that painting. People remember that restaurant that had the best food they've ever had. That chef was such an artist, you know, with what he did. You know, we want people to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where do you all think like that comes from?
I don't know. I kind of feel like there's a relatability factor. Like I want to do something that people relate to.
Yeah.
I want to do something that people see
relating,
themselves in. Yeah.
Relating's an important thing.
I feel like with me, like growing up, and I only put this pressure on myself. It's not like it really came from anybody or anything else, but I have struggled a lot in my life of doing what I feel like, or going against what I feel like is expected of me and going the other way. And so, like...
Yes, you do.
Like a true 4.
So Ben and I are both Enneagram 4s, if
Yep.
you know what that is. It's the individualist, the romantic, as some call. And so I don't know. I feel like I intentionally kind of go the other way. So I feel like there's pressure that I put on myself, but then I'm like, what if I really do want to do this? And then, but I'll just, you know, look like I'm just following the crowd. But if it makes me happy, then what matter? Why does it matter? You know, so as I get older, I feel like I can actually kind of do what I want. I remember, I think it was about a year ago, I'm very, overly conscious about the art that I produce, since I'm not necessarily a painter, but I do get enjoyment out of it. I put on like a really good record, and I kind of let the record, like the notes, kind of guide my brushstrokes and how I put together the piece, you know? And then, you know, even though I'm not taking any classes, I just watch stuff on YouTube, I kind of just let that feeling guide the painting. And last year I finally just kind of put something out there on Instagram, and not for anybody to be like, oh, good job, Lauren, you know, but for me to actually be like, you know, this is a piece of me, and I'm pretty proud of it, and I'm just putting this out there because it's hard for me to put that out there. And so that was a piece of me, like, trying to overcome the expectations or the thoughts of other people, and me just like being me and overcoming that anxiousness or whatever you want to call it. So
Yeah.
It's like challenging yourself just to step out and actually be yourself. I totally get that.
yeah, so it's very important to find out who you are, and that's a big theme that I talk about, especially working with teenagers, but just like humans in general, is just like, who are you and who you want to be, and what kind of image, like, how do you want to be perceived? Like, however that is, be that person. So,
And do you think it's important, like you say, to find out who we are, to be able to then know our limits, kind of in a sense? So
you mean like, do you mean like setting boundaries? Or
yeah, like, you know, like as creatives, like, say, you know, we tend to burn out, we tend to push ourselves too much. Do you think a lot of that is because maybe we don't understand ourselves enough to know how we work?
So I don't know, maybe you could speak to that a little bit more, like you two personally, of what you feel like kind of leads to burnout, or if you've ever experienced that, because I feel like it is unique to everybody. But if on our way back from New Mexico, we listened to this really interesting podcast that was a Rick Rubin podcast. I don't know exactly.
It's a really weird name.
It's like tetragrammaton. I don't know if I'm saying it right, and it's a really long word. But he had this interview with John Mayer.
Which is an amazing interview.
Yeah, and John Mayer was talking about how he used to write songs that he thought people would like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote songs for that purpose, and then he kind of was feeling like, I don't think I'm not enjoying this as much anymore. But then once he kind of made his set lists, of the songs that he liked and gave him joy, then you can see the joy on his face when he performs.
Yeah.
And so he was doing it and if he's enjoying it, then the crowd's going to enjoy it,
totally.
And so I feel like it's the same thing. So I got a lot out of listening to that. If you do it for yourself and you enjoy the product, then I feel like that's going to reflect in how people view it ultimately.
Yeah.
So anyways, I thought that was really fascinating, and I've been really thinking and chewing on that the last few days.
Yeah, no, that's really good because, I was the same way too when I started writing music and stuff. Was like, okay, what are people liking right now? I'm going to sound like this band so that way I can, relate to these people or write songs with these lyrics because that's kind of what's popular. But then, it's just like, I feel like true art is not doing what people want, but doing what you want, because that's what needs to get put in the world.
Yeah.
It's not copying someone else or copying, this. There needs to be more of people putting their work out and not people putting out work for other people,
Yeah, there's a big difference in making art for a living versus making art to make art. Because if you are trying to this is the song I think people want to buy, that's, of course you're not going to find joy in that, because you're going to be writing from a place that's not yours, and you're giving it to someone else who's probably not going to appreciate it the way that you intended them to anyway. So it just makes more sense that you would take the things that are most important to you or most relatable or that you've been through and put them out there so that other people, like we said earlier, the relatability, other people can connect with them and say, oh, dude, I've actually experienced that too. He knows exactly what I'm talking about.
And it comes from a more genuine place. Yeah, you kind of do it in that way. And so that's what I feel like is the relatability factor. And if you were to do that, I would assume, I'm not an artist full time. Like I said, I do it as a hobby, and I just do stuff, it's kind of more just self-care for me, but I feel like if you were a full-time artist, poet, whatever, writer, that it would lead less to burnout if you were just, if you tapped into, like you said, to that authenticity.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Something to think about.
Yeah. And I think tapping into your authenticity is great for your art. And tapping into who you are as a human and how you work, what triggers your mind, what, keeps you going, that is also just as important as finding your voice in art, but finding your voice in life, because then you can understand when you start to become depressed, when you start to have mood swings, when you start to feel burnout and things like that. Then you're now taking control of your physical health as well as your mental health, and starting to be able to realize those factors as well. So finding the authenticity in both sides, I think,
and that
is
just
important.
comes from having a heightened sense of awareness.
Yeah.
And so if we can be aware of triggers within ourselves, we're noticing that, I don't know, if you know when if you're starting to feel down, knowing how to cope with that in order to, still be able to function and create or, live your life and kind of help yourself get out of that slump a little bit more effectively than not having an awareness and kind of diving deeper into it. So, yeah.
I think you have to find a place where you are allowed to discover yourself. And I think a lot of burnout truly happens when a person is in a place and they are told who they are and they believe that more than they're allowed to discover who they are and produce out of that. Because when you're in a place and there's an expectation of you and you are made to believe this is your calling, or this is who you are, or this is what you're supposed to do, or this is what we expect of you, and you produce out of that, you are going to face extreme burnout, because there's going to be no joy in that. There's nothing in that that's of you. And it's funny that was the prompt with spirituality, because that seems to happen in a lot of spiritual circles.
Yes.
People get involved in something because they believe there's meaning there. And in doing that, they are made to conform, whether out of good intention or naive intention or whatever. Maybe those people leading don't realize, but they're made to conform to something that they have been told is who they are. And they're not really given a lot of room in that place to discover who they are. And then they have to produce out of something that's not them.
Right.
And I've seen that so many times just in different circles. And I think it's a really good thing to take the time for yourself to discover who you really are, and then find the place where you can actually be that person and produce in that circle. Because just because you're in a spiritual circle, or just because you're in a place and you're not able to produce like is expected of you, that's probably a good sign that may not be the right place, or maybe you need to step out and discover who you are and then step back in.
Right.
But yeah.
And while I don't want to make this kind of like an advertisement for therapy,
That's
but
okay.
therapy is for everybody, and it can be
Well, that's what we
very,
want to talk about.
Yes.
Yes.
very helpful and really good. I'll just having a community that you're around and speaking with friends, having family, is a gift. So I'm a blessing to those that have that. Find your community, be able to speak openly about how. Oh, my dog is being so cute. And about how you're doing, and be vulnerable, open up with, I don't know, things that are hard, that you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if you feel like you're not in a state to be able to be that open with friends, find a mental health professional who it's their job to, have that objective point of view, and to help talk you through and kind of help you navigate your way to discovering those things and learning the skills and acquiring the tools to be able to take the next step. So you can do that. My best resource is going to Psychology Today and typing in your zip code and seeing what kind of, what are your needs, I guess, for counseling. So that's all I'll say about that.
You said going to Psychology Today?
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
psychologytoday.com. That's like my go-to, like to see who's like in town.
So that's for
wherever
like
you live.
finding mental health counselor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it can
Nice,
either
okay.
be like a therapist or a social worker or a marriage and family counselor, all types of assistance in that way. And you can see whether you're covered by insurance or something like that, or whether there's any kind of sliding scale for paying, but it's really like, I think we're entering into a new generation of knowing that self-care and, going to a therapist, I feel like now, like you wouldn't not go to the doctor if your arm was broken, And so like, I think we're entering into a generation where we're kind of treating psychology and counseling on kind of the same level as like physical ailments, And so it's really important to reach out and to acquire those skills to be, I don't know, why wouldn't we want to be healthier? Why wouldn't we want to be happier and to learn those things?
Yeah.
So, but it takes a little bit, it takes momentum, and it takes some drive and motivation to get to there. And so it's important to take care of yourself in that way.
Yeah.
As far as the many other components that make up you.
People are treating it like more practical necessity than they are like 10, 15 years ago
Right.
even.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
yeah.
back then it was like, oh, you're weak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
You have to
you're
go
gosh,
to
yeah.
crazy.
therapy. What are you, a baby?
That's
like,
how, that was my growing up.
And
Yeah.
I tell all of my clients, my students, I am also a client myself. I have my own counselor because, I feel like it's useful for everybody, no matter the I don't know, whether there's like a big bag of drama, like that's really heavy, or, you know, like feelings are different for everybody. And so it's really important to acknowledge that and to be mindful of that. But, yeah, it's important to, and we live in a generation now that it's becoming more acceptable, and it's really cool to be able to see that. And I tell all my clients, all my students, that it takes a lot of bravery. And I'm not saying this, you know, to make them feel better, but I feel like it takes more bravery to be like, hey, I need some help, than to just sit with it and stew on it and let it build.
Yeah.
And then it get on top of you. You know, I think it takes a lot of strength to be like, hey, I need some help. So it's a really good thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who might be writers, painters, musicians, illustrators, animators, you know, whoever's listening to this podcast right now, and maybe they're not at the point in their life where they're ready to go see a therapist yet, what are some practical steps like someone can take when they start to feel that depression coming on, or they start to feel that self-doubt, stuff like that coming on? What are some practical steps they can take to help just do some little improvements to their mental health until, you know, they are able to speak to somebody?
So I'm curious, before I answer that, do you guys have any answers to that, of what has worked for you in the moments for yourself? If you have things that have worked specifically for you, I'm curious before I kind of give just like, you know, maybe general thoughts. Do you both have anything specifically to you that you've kind of encountered that has been effective?
Something that's been really effective for me is on times where I'm starting to feel a bit overwhelmed. I mean, I don't do it as much now, which I probably should. But a lot of times when I used to feel pretty overwhelmed and stressed out, I would just kind of, obviously I would let it get a little too far, but I would just stop, drop what I was doing, and maybe just go for a walk. Yeah. Like that is probably one of the quickest ways for me to clear my head, is I just throw some headphones in and go for a walk and just stop focusing on what I was focusing on, you know? Yeah. That used to work really well with calming me down, and I don't do it as much now as I should. To be honest, you know, we're being open on this. Like I let myself get way too stressed out before I get to that point.
Yeah.
And don't look at me and smile and nod your head.
No, that doesn't sound like you at all.
I internalize all that stress, which eventually starts to bleed out, and then I get to the point where I'm already so far gone that it's like, well, what good is that walk going to do now?
Yeah.
Or at least that's the way I feel, you know?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But it would do good.
I think that is a good, in the moment, an immediate thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That is good.
Obviously,
to get
that's,
out. Like,
that's your Band-Aid for the moment.
For me, it's the same. It's like I got to leave the situation for a second, get out for a second. And if it's go for a walk or go for a drive or go grab a coffee or whatever, I think it's good to have an immediate response when you recognize it, because I think a lot of times people don't recognize it and they allow themselves to stay there too long, and then it becomes too much, and then there's a big breakdown or something. And I think if you can find a way to recognize it and then have a certain act that you can do when you recognize it, even if it's as simple as just leaving for a second, going for a walk or whatever, I think that's a really good thing. I think a good, in a broad picture way, is to look at the people you're around, look at the atmosphere that you're in.
Yeah.
Recognize if this is a place where the healthy you would actually be happy. Or another really good thing to think about would be to look at, I don't know how deep into psychology this is going, but like if you could look at you from like 10 or 15 years ago, like the innocent version of you, would the innocent version of you be able to be in the same place and still be that version, basically?
Wow, yeah.
And so if you look at who you are right now and you're like, I think me from 15 years ago would like to see me now here, that's probably a pretty good place to be. If you look at that and you're like, me from 15 years ago saw me here now, what would they think? You know, would they be like, what are you doing here? This is not who you are, or whatever. I mean, that's a pretty good, that's really a good broad picture.
That's really powerful and something I really relate to a lot, and something that I think about a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. when we bought this house and we colored all the walls and put art everywhere, and I've never had a house where I painted the walls so boldly. I'm like, fourth grade Lauren would be like really psyched to live here, and that made me really happy, you know. But I've definitely been in moments where I'm just like, what am I doing, you know? And so maybe that can be just a little push that you need, you know. And while that, you know, speaks, like that speaks to me and it speaks to you, that kind of thought process wouldn't speak to everybody, but that could be something that's certainly effective.
Yeah.
So.
I think it is. I think it's a good thing because who you really are, like as an individual, your personality, the things that you enjoy, obviously they're limited, but when you're young, the things that you naturally gravitate towards, the things that are like you as an innocent human who doesn't have crazy distorted life experience, the things that you naturally gravitate towards, things that are either funny or things that you think are cool or things that you actually really enjoy or love. Like, I feel like those come from places of innocence that are just part of your natural personality. And it's so easy to lose that because life is just unbearably tough and you have to sacrifice portions of that along the way. And so for me, it's like, it is good to look back and be like, okay, if I could see myself now from back then, what would that version of me think? You know? And so that's I think it's a good grounding for me. Obviously it doesn't work for everybody because some people have to be in situations that they don't necessarily want to be in, but they still get to determine to some degree who they are in that situation.
Yeah,
and I think you could still say, would I be proud of myself for who I am in this situation? You know, so I think it's a good grounding thing. But
the way I learned about that is, you know, I quoted 30 Rock earlier. I like, and this is something from the movie Mr. Deeds. He talks about that in the movie. He was just like, what would our, 6-year-old selves think of us? They'd probably pull our pigtails and push us down, because they're talking about like money and being greedy and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's just something to consider and to think about, and that relates with me, but there's many like skills to acquire, like, going for a walk, taking a break, getting some fresh air, just deep breathing. I think we underestimate the power of breathing, and tending to ourselves, whatever that looks like, whether it's, taking a break, going for a drive. I don't know, I can tell you the things that I do, like I do yoga. That's really helpful for me when I need to get out of my head. Going for a walk helps. Being in nature, just being outside is really healing to me. And then I feel like I can enter back into, what I'm doing. Journaling is really effective for a lot of people. Just getting what's up here, I'm pointing to my head, to like out on a page, in just words. And maybe that's creating poetry, and expressing yourself in that way, like I was talking about. If you're able to express yourself and get the messiness of what's in our head out in some way, like that's incredibly therapeutic. So we just got to figure out a way to do that and to work through that, whatever it looks like for everybody.
Yeah.
Totally.
Very cool.
100%.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your information with us and joining in on this conversation.
Hopefully I wasn't too awkward.
You're great.
I'm not going to lie. I was nervous to be on here.
But Ben, on the other hand, he's just a little awkward.
Well, we had my wife on the show, and man,
I'll cut that part out so you don't have to sleep outside.
She's beautiful. I said.
Have you seen her eyes?
I love her
Everyone's
so
gonna
much.
be like staring into her eyes now.
Yeah.
I am so excited for us to both be together in the city. It's gonna be so great. She's staying here while I'm commuting, and that's been really fun. Not really, but so we're ready for that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I'm ready for you guys to get up there too, because I know it's going to be good.
It's a loss for Enid, but it's a gain to Oklahoma City. So, and then we'll continue seeing you when you visit.
Yeah, totally. And I don't think it's a huge loss for Enid. I think we had Enid got a lot, and we gave a lot of ourselves, and you kind of just reach a point where you're like, there's nothing else we can do. I think it's time to go on, and and I think what we helped do here is significant, and it's here, and it's still going strong. It's not going anywhere, and so I'm proud of that. And so I think it's, I think it's time to go on and do something else meaningful and just keep doing it.
Plugging it in.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Good. So like I said, thanks again, Lauren, for joining us, and thank you for the prompt that we got to write about.
Very good.
Just remember, everyone listening, if you've taken anything out of this, taking care of your mental health is very important.
Yes.
Also, psychology today.
Yes, and if there's any emergencies I think it's been within the past year, that's the past few years. If you have any mental health emergencies, dialing 988 is the emergency. Like, it's a really easy number. They've made it, because it used to be a really long number for a suicide hotline, for emergencies, but if there's any type of emergencies like that, it's important what 911 is. So 988 is the mental health hotline. So for emergencies, take care of yourself. And that's what I say to every student as they leave. I was like, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself. And that's the way to do it. So that's kind of just turned into my motto unintentionally, but I really like it. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So now it is time to see what our next prompt is.
Boom.
We have 11. No, wait.
11 prompts.
Yeah, 11. I had to clean some out.
I'm going to hit the...
10 now, because we used Lauren's spirituality. So 10.
Okay, so I was at 10. Okay. I usually hit this like at least twice.
Yeah,
so that it gives a good... There's 1. There's 2. I'm going to do 3 times. Okay, well, number 10.
So that now it makes 11, 10. So this is actually a friend of ours, Jessica Anderson.
Oh.
Yeah, she's so sweet.
What up, Jess?
What up, Jess? This prompt is write something that seems happy but is underlying sad.
Bruh.
That's speaking to a fourth
we were
language.
talking about this, Jess.
That's like the perfect emo topic.
We were talking about songs that sound happy but underlining are sad.
Yeah,
I see. I see.
Also,
where
the camera's dead. So
are you freaking? So you're pointing.
So, yeah, if you're listening right now, our camera died halfway through because I had it. Because when I'm recording 4K, I can record an hour, but we went over an hour, so it stopped. So I'll change it to 1080 next time.
Yes, I was talking directly to you. If you won't be able to see it, but
I was looking into the distance.
I see you.
And those watching the YouTube right now, obviously you'll see this, but I'm gonna just input like a still image while the audio is still playing background. So they'll play the video up until the camera dies. Then it'll just be like an image that I'll put up with the audio still going.
Music.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
With the sound still going. So yeah, I didn't realize that my camera only did an hour in 4K, which I guess we don't really need to do this in 4K. So
I also am kind of chatty. So
hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. We try to keep it around an hour.
Off, I guess I can take my pants off now.
Oh wait, you've had pants on this whole time?
I'm gonna put my pants on. What? No.
Off when the camera was rolling.
So we have our prompt for next week. Thank you, Jessica Anderson, and we're gonna get to writing on that. Thank you everyone so much for listening. Don't forget, you can give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Stitcher, all those great places. Those actually help get the word out. Also, why don't you tweet about the show, post some stuff on Instagram, help get the word out, because that's how we advertise, is by telling you to do it for us.
Yes.
Yes, we are broke and just sit around and talk.
This is all we do.
This is all we do.
Pretty much.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's all for you.
For you guys. But yeah, seriously, we love you guys. We appreciate you listening, and we know you're listening because I see the analytics, I see the stats. So thank you all so much for downloading the show and listening. Excited for next week. Thank you again, Lauren, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I am honored.
Yes, thank you to our little pug who's been sleeping over there. I'm sure you heard him snoring during the show.
I think he farted while one of you was reading
I saw his leg.
Oh my gosh.
few times.
Yeah, so you probably hear some
was
fart
quivering.
and pug noises in the background. But
Aw,
yeah,
poor guy.
Thank you so much. As always, I'm Corey.
Oh, and I'm Lauren.
I'm Ben.
We'll see you next week.
Peace.